Namaskaram, everybody. Today is the Tritiya in the Shukla Paksha of Falguni Masa. What does that mean? It means it's the third day after Amavasya. That's what a Shukla Tritiya means. That is, the waxing phase is referred to as Shukla Paksha. And the third day after the new moon or Amavasya is referred to as the Tritiya. And this is the Falguna month. What does that mean? That means that when the moon comes to the constellation of Uttara Falguni, which is in the Kanya Rashi, or what is known as Virgo in the zodiac signs, at that time, because the sun during this entire month of February to March, mid-February to mid-March, is in the Meena Rashi, which is Pisces, and therefore right opposite to Pisces being Virgo. When the moon comes to Virgo, when the sun and the moon are directly opposing each other, that's when the moon is able to reflect the entire light of the sun, and therefore we talk of it as a full moon or a Paurnami. And whichever constellation the moon is during the Paurnami, the entire month containing that full moon is named after that constellation. So Falguni month is basically one in which the full moon occurs on a Uttara Falguni nakshatra. Why is it so special? Especially in Karnataka and in particular in Dakshina Kannada district, we have wonderful temples, one of which is the Kukke Subramanya temple, and another is the Horanadu Annapurneshwari temple, both of which celebrate their annual chariot festival on this particular day. So the annual chariot festival that is part of most ancient temples is something that helps us to understand that what is reality is our Atma or Brahman, and that is usually housed in the Garbhagriha of the temple, but is taken out on a procession at least once a year, and that procession marks the entertainment or accessibility of that Atman to our toolkit or tool set of body, mind and intellect, which are the observers of that Ratha Yatra. In fact, the body itself is the Ratha in which the soul or Atma undertakes a pilgrimage from birth to death. So this particular lifetime of the many lifetimes that we have is one such Ratha Yatra. And it's very, very significant that both mother and son, Annapurneshwari and Subramanya, have their Rathas on the same day. As Annapurneshwari is a form of Parvati, who, as you know, is Shakti, who resides in the Agnya Chakra, and Saravana Bhavar Subramanya Kartikeya, Muruga, is the one who resides in the Swadhisthana Chakra, the second chakra. And they have a direct correlation between each other because it is Parvati from the Agnya Chakra who delivers the weapon of choice, the veil, the lance, to Muruga at the Swadhisthana Chakra, which enables Muruga, the Deva Senapati, that means the one who is representation of our valor and courage, in the sense that he is the one who protects our resplendent, aggressive, passionate nature of the Rajasic Gunas, which are symbolized by the Devas. So he is a Senapati to them, Sena being the armed forces and Pati being the lord of that. So this direct connection from the Agnya Chakra at our pituitary or pineal glands to the Swadhisthana Chakra, which is a couple of inches below our navel, right behind our reproductive organs in the spinal cord. And these two are very intricately interconnected. And that's something which has been popularized by these networks of temples. As you know, there are 51 Shakti Pitas, which is a network. Similarly, the 12 Jyotirlingas is another network. And in a previous episode in Srimati Vasanta Kumari Sampath's channel, I talked about the networks involving the 9 grahas, or our consumers of our treasures, and that is called as the Navagraha Stalas, and the Panchabhuta Stalas, or the great Shiva temples, each of which is at one of the locations which are conducive to accessing the subtle nature of the Panchabhutas. So what are these subtle natures? If you look at 3 important ingredients of a spiritual path, they are our Ojas, Tejas and Prana. The Ojas is something that is extracted out of the earth and the water elements. If they are sublimated from the materialistic nature to the spiritual nature, then the earth and the water element, that is the solid and liquid elements, transform themselves into what is known as Ojas. And this Ojas we don't need to give back when we die. Unlike all the other 5 elements, especially the first 4, leave alone Akasha, namely earth, water, fire, air, and before that these 4, yes. And apart from the space element, we have to be given back. Whatever we take from the earth, we give back either in the form of excretion or through our dead body. This, or sweat, and various other ways in which we exchange matter with the environment, including our breath, inspiration and expiration. And it's wonderful that the word expiration is used both for exhalation as well as death. And this essentially means that we give back the earth and water elements amongst the other elements back to the earth when we die, except for that portion of the earth and water element which we have converted into Ojas. And that's why it's so significant. Similarly, all the fire element that we have extracted from the environment, both through our birth and through our growth, that energy we have to surrender when we die. But if we have converted some part of that energy at the Manipura Chakra into that fire at the Manipura Chakra, the digestive fire, in the subtle sense, if we have converted that into Tejas, is the aircraft, light combat aircraft is named Tejas after this particular entity. So this is a subtle form of the energy or fire element, Tejas, which we don't need to surrender when we depart or expire from this lifetime. Similarly, the air and space elements that we need to surrender, namely the ones at the Anahata and the Vishuddhi Chakra that I detailed yesterday, those again we have to surrender at death. But through our spiritual sadhanas, we can convert them into a certain form of prana which we can retain even as we die. So Ojas is a subtle form of earth and water. Tejas is a subtle form of fire or energy. And your prana is a subtle form of air and space elements, all 3 of which, Ojas, Tejas and prana, we can take back with us. Now, this is beautiful because the Parvati whom we celebrate today at Horanadu, or what is considered to be Hora means that which is Horagade, which means that is outside, and Nadu is in land. So outside land, something that is beyond what is normally considered as land, is the Horanadu. And that's the place chosen for the temple of Annapurneshwari. And Anna means food in many different sense. Even in English, we use the phrase food for thought. What does that mean? So food is not just what we consume through our mouth as solid and liquid forms. Of course, gas through carbonated drinks like Coca-Cola or Pepsi, etc. Leaving that aside, we see that we are consuming not only through our mouth, but through the various other sense organs. Whatever we see is a form of consumption. Whatever we hear is another form of consumption. Whatever we smell is a part of consumption. And whatever we touch and feel through our skin is also a form of consumption, something that we are consuming. Or we are doing grahana of bhojana. And these bhojanas can be of all these types. And we can consume through our mind various feelings, emotions, and through our intellect we consume various ideas, thoughts, logic, rationale, etc. And all of these analytics that we consume through the intellect, the feelings and emotions we consume through the mind, and the food that we consume through the body, through each of the sense organs, is all accumulated in us. So it is not us entirely. We are beyond that, as I talked to you about the Annamaya Kosha yesterday. So what we are talking about celebrating today is Annapurneshwari. The word Purna there becomes very significant now. Anna is food, and food of all kinds, not only food for the physique, but the food for the emotion, food for the intellect, that is the thought, and so on and so forth, which I just described. So Annapurna is getting to fullness through Anna. So just being materialistic in nature, in our lifestyles, we will just have a zero exchange program. We take certain things from the earth, from the environment, and give it back to it when it's time to depart. Interest free, but every gram of it has to be given back. But for those of us who are into the sadhana path, some of these we have very intelligently converted into ojas, tejas, and prana, and therefore these are ethereal things that we can take with us. And that we say that we come without anything and we go back without anything. But that's not true. We can go back with something of great value for our future life, beyond death, and or in whatever Jivan Mukti state of self-realization we get into. And these are the most beautiful things that Annapurneshwari represents. I talked of the first two parts of her three-part name, Annapurna. The last one is Ishwari, or that which lords over in a feminine aspect. Ishwari is a feminine form of Isha or Ishwara. So this is something that enables us, if taken in the proper form, not just to get off hunger and thirst and breathlessness or lack of energy, laziness. No, that's one level of it at the physicality. But the same Annapurneshwari of Horanadu, which is on the other side of Dharmasthala, one side is Kukke Subramanya, which we are celebrating today. The other side is the Horanadu Annapurneshwari. She can help us transform whatever we consume through our sense organs, through our mind and intellect, into ojas, tejas, and prana. And this is done through Raja Yogic practices as well as Tantric practices, in both of which Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, whom I described yesterday on his 186th birthday, was an expert at, because he had a guru for Advaitic practices, for his yogic practices, and for his tantric practices as well. apart from the various other paths that he took to showcase that they all lead to the same goal. So this is the beauty of the Horanadu Annapurneshwari temple, which you should definitely try to visit. Both these temples as well as the Sringeri temple, which is an amazing place again. We'll talk about it another day because there's so much to talk about just Annapurneshwari and Kukke Subramanya today, who are being celebrated through their Ratha Yatras. The annual temple chariot festival is the main days today, but it actually spreads for 5 to 7 days, the entire week. Various celebrations before and after this Ratha are there as well. And now coming to the Kukke Subramanya temple, I've talked about Subramanya in various other contexts in Vasandima's channel, Srimati S. Vasanta Kumari, for those of you Katham channel subscribers who have not seen that. It's my mother's channel, which I urge you to look at. It has beautiful Carnatic music in the vocals of my mother, and with the Advaitic interpretations by me over many weeks from October the 25th last year, 2020. We started, and every week we've been putting up a few songs, at least one song, if not more. And you would see the Advaitic interpretations over there. And in one of them, when she sang a song about Muruga Kartikeya Saravana Bhava, I've talked about the Subramanya principle. Su meaning anything that is auspicious or good, and Brahman is, of course, our ultimate nature, that one entity which alone exists at all times and which is the only truth, and of which our Atma is just a reflection. It is in fact made in the same context as the Brahman, just that it is appearing in so many different forms as your Atma, my Atma, etc. But it's improper to say that the Atma is yours or mine, because there is only the Atma, which is the Brahman, which is itself appearing clothed in various bodies, minds, intellects, and therefore appearing as individuals or indivisible entities. But in reality, they're all together into one single Brahman, and that's what the Subramanya principle describes. And in this particular place, the village itself or the town itself is called Subramanya, and Kukke refers to a linga or a symbolism, and that Kukke Subramanya is very interestingly a place where the Subramanya Tattva is worshipped in the form of a snake. And the snake, just like Rahu and Ketu, as I previously mentioned, represent metaphysical nature. And some of the other famous snakes are Vasuki, Suki, and Vasuki, something that is a special kind of happiness. Vasuki, who adorns the neck of Shiva, the blue neck which contains the poison, is one famous snake, Vasuki. And another famous snake is Adi Ananta Shesha, whom I described yesterday as well. Now, all these snakes are children of Khatri, and she is a sister of Vinata, who is the mother of Garuda. Now, both of these women are married to Kashyapa Maharishi, one of the Sapta Rishis, and therefore they are half brothers. The snakes and the eagles are half brothers to each other, and the most famous of the eagles is Garuda, whose flapping wings represent the Vedas. So what do we mean by an enmity between the snake and the eagle, or between Vasuki and Garuda in particular, or their mothers for that matter, is the conflict between mysticism, which is represented by the snake, that is our own mystic nature of the ability to perceive things as they are, rather than in the physical, emotional, intellectual, or energy bodies. We see things as they are in the bliss body or the Brahman itself. So when I see you, I see Brahman. When you see me, you see Brahman. We see Brahman not only in each other, human beings, but all living beings and even the so-called non-living entities. There's only Brahman which exists. And that kind of a perceptivity is what the snake represents, or our mysticism represents. And this is sometimes at loggerheads with the scriptural knowledge. In fact, it's not appropriate to call the Vedas as scriptures. You can call Bible as a scripture, Quran as a scripture, but the Sanatana Dharma scriptures are not really books. They are an entire library, and therefore they're called as granthas or volumes. And they were only written quite recently. They were passed on as sounds. And the sound is far more important for us than the written word. The vak is so very critical. And that sound is what is generated by the flapping of an eagle's wings. And that is what Garuda represents. So Garuda represents scriptural knowledge or wisdom. While scriptural knowledge or wisdom, especially from the Vedas, the ultimate source of all wisdom, is very significant, if you don't have the perception or mysticism of a snake or a Vasuki in seeing things as they are, then they are of no significance. Similarly, if you have a great perception, but you do not have the scriptural backing to it, again, you are only half equipped. So it's the combo of Garuda and Vasuki which is important, and the trick is to keep them away from fighting each other and seeing that they can be actually coexisting. All different life forms can coexist on earth. The snakes and the eagles have existed for millennia without completely making one of the two extinct, though they fight with each other. It's the same way our own mysticism, our Raja Yogic path, the path through what Patanjali Maharishi gave to us, Patanjali, the path of surrender, the Ashtanga Yoga, or the eight-limbed yogic path of unison with our true nature or Brahman. And that should never be at loggerheads with the Vedic or scriptural knowledge or wisdom that we have through Jnana Yoga. So these are two of the four important paths, the other two being Bhakti Yoga or the devotional path, and Karma Yoga or the path of fruitless action, dedicated work without bothering about the results that you anticipate. Whether you get them or not, you continue to work towards whatever is your dharma. That is the Karma Yoga. So leave aside Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga for now. What we are talking about at Kukke Subramanya is a situation where Garuda was attacking Vasuki, and Vasuki was hiding in a cave in the Western Ghats, and which is a Parashurama Mukti Kshetra as well, Kukke, apart from many other great Mukti Kshetras which Parashurama, one of the avatars of Vishnu, established, some few other famous ones being Udupi and Kollur, where there is a Mukambika temple, and Udupi where there is a beautiful child Krishna temple dancing on the Kalinga snake. Again, the snake symbolism is very important for the so-called Vaishnavas too, the universalists, as opposed to Shaivas, who are the ones who are towards nothingness rather than everythingness, essentially two sides of the same coin. So Kukke Subramanya is a kshetra which actually represents the snake with its hood, the similar to the Adi Ananta Sesha on which our own everythingness reclines, and that is Vasuki as well, who is around the neck of our nothingness. And when Vasuki was being attacked by Garuda, or in other words, our mysticism, our perceptivity was being attacked by our scriptural knowledge, or the Jnana Yoga path was attacking the Raja Yoga path, then Shiva had to come to the rescue of Vasuki, or our Raja Yogic perceptivity of mysticism, because Vasuki was a great devotee of Shiva, that which is not, our own nothingness. So Vasuki, the special kind of happiness that mysticism represents, pleads with our own nothingness, and our own nothingness comes to his rescue, not by himself, but by sending the form of the formless, Su of the Brahman, Subramanya, in a Kukke form, in a Lingam form. And that Subramanya comes to the rescue of mysticism and gives protection to Vasuki. So if you look at the Garbhagriha, actually it is Sesha, that is the Adi Ananta Sesha of Vishnu, the Vasuki, the snake around Shiva's neck, and Subramanya also in the form of a snake. This triple entity is what is being worshipped in the Garbhagriha, or the Sanctum Sanctorum of the Kukke Subramanya temple. That's why many of its rituals, like the Ashlesha Bhali or the various Sarpadosha pujas, Nivarana pujas rather, are all very, very intriguing to the common people who do not have this mystical understanding. They would think of these as outdated or things that don't make logical sense. Yes, they don't make logical sense because these are things beyond the logic. These are mystical. They are of a different dimension. These are amazing things only to be experienced. And once you experience, it will blow up all of your logic further down and break it into pieces. And that's the beautiful Kukke Subramanya, even in a physical sense, because it is located on the banks of the Kumaradhara rivulet, and that Kumaradhara is supposed to be made out of the holy river waters of Ganga, Kaveri, Yamuna, Saraswati, Sindhu, and all the other Godavari, Narmada, etc., which were all brought in to be poured over there during the festivities of the wedding of our own valor and courage, Subramanya, with our own divine resplendence, or Devayane, the daughter of our Rajasic Gunas lordship Indra, when Subramanya came back after having killed Tarakasura, Shurapadma, and all the Asuras, or our tamasic gunas of laziness and lethargy, sleepiness, and brought us into activity or passionate aggression towards our goals, giving a win to the Devas over the Asuras, to our Rajasic Gunas over our Tamasic Gunas. And when that was accomplished, Devayana married Muruga, or Saravana Baba Subramanya, to showcase that our valor and courage and our divine resplendence are one and the same. The divine resplendence that we possess is nothing but a Shakti, or a powerhouse, or a gift that is obtained by our form of the formless Subramanya. And it's in celebration of that the Kumaradhara rivulet started flowing, and it still does, giving a very scenic beauty to the valley that it is. And in fact, a valley is like a basket, and Kukke in the Tulu language, or the local Kannada dialects over there, Kukke not only means a lingam or a symbol or the phallus, but also represents the, you see, the phallus or the reproductive organ is right in front of the mapping that we do to the physical body of the Swadhisthana Chakra. And so no wonder it is there. But another meaning of Kukke is also a basket in the local language, and a basket is the valley into which the Kumaradhara river flows and the temple of Kukke Subramanya stands. And what are the beautiful parvats there? The Shesha Parvat, or in the form of a Sheshanag with like a hood protecting the temple of the Adi Ananta Shesha, as well as Kumara Parvata in the backdrop of the temple, a beautifully green hillock of a part of the Western Ghats. And these two together, the Shesha Parvata, Kumara Parvata, the mountains, and as well as the river, the Kumaradhara, create such beautiful natural scenic beauty for this temple of Kuke Subramanya, which is in the vicinity of his father, the Dharmasthala Manjunatha, and his mother, the Horanadu Annapurneshwari, who also exists in various other forms. For example, the Kolluru Mukambika and the Sringeri Sharada. All of these are a network of temples which are beautifully maintained by the government as of now, but can be done in an even more better way if they were to be done in the ancient traditional way in which they were established in the first place, when the prana pratishta for these were made at least 5 millennia or more ago. And that kind of care and share has to happen. The sharing is what Annapurneshwari or Annadana happening at all these three temples is about. Whether it is the Dharmasthala Manjunatha temple or the Kuke Subramanya temple and of course the Annapurneshwari temple at Horanadu, they are all very famous for their Annadana, almost an unending Annadana, like from the Akshaya Patra of Draupadi, where in the food used to be coming out incessantly. Same way, whoever goes to these temples is fed amply with nutritious food, the food that gives Purnatva. That's what Annapurneshwari is about. And no wonder Adi Shankaracharya visited all these three temples and even sang in praise of the Annapurneshwari, the Annapurneshwari Stotram, of which the first stanza is Annapurne Sada Purne Shankara Prana Bhallabhe Jnana Bhairagya Siddhyartam Bhiksham Dehi Cha Parvati Mata Cha Parvati Devi Pita Devo Maheshwara Bandhava Shiva Bhaktascha Swadesho Bhuvanatrayam. Such a beautiful first stanza, and this is usually sung before partaking food, whether it is for breakfast, lunch or dinner, along with Aum Brahmarpanam Brahmahavir Brahmagnau Brahmanahutam Brahmaiva Tena Gantavyam Brahma Karma Samadhina, which is one of the 700 shlokas from the Bhagavad Gita, where we say that Brahman alone is what is being offered into the yajna or homa or the sacrifice, wherein it means the food that we eat, and Brahman alone who eats it, Brahman alone who digests it, and Brahman alone who excretes it. The Brahman alone is all that exists, and that Brahman is the Subramanya, and that is what is told before eating food or anna as well. And we of course also say another shloka before partaking food, which is Aum Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnam Hadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Again referring to the Annapurna symbolism of the Purnatva, or the infinity or the fullness that exists in the food. And when you take the infinity out into your mouth, you take infinity out of infinity, infinity alone remains. So this is again a great symbol of mathematics, that infinity minus infinity is still infinity, infinity divided by infinity is still infinity, as long as the limit is not taken. And that limit is what brings us back to the materialism from the spirituality. We also say one more shloka, which is a Shanti mantra before the partaking of food, and that is Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Bhidvishavahai. Shanti Shanti Shanti. And in this we are talking about our togetherness. When we are all partaking the same food, obviously we become the same. What we eat is what we become, and that is essentially what this togetherness of the Sahana Bhavatu is talking about. To the food that we consume, it is offering an invocation and asking it to protect us, because it's through the food that we continue to live. So there is a protection for our physicality. It is the food that we consume in the form of our emotions and feelings which sustains our mind. It's the food that we consume in the form of ideas and thoughts, and logic and rationale, that we sustain our intellect. So it's the food for our intellect, and therefore we need to be together with that as well. And essentially we are taking the prana, or the breath, and the energy that we are consuming from our environment as well. All of these exchanges that are taking place between us and the environment, a give and a take, is all that ensures that connectivity through the boundary conditions of this boundary value problem that we are, and the initial value problem which began at the time of the birth of this particular avatar of ours. Each one of us is an avatar in that sense, and we all have descended in a particular body form, which is a physical, subtle and causal body, and then we go back to our true nature. But even as we exist within this body, we are that true nature of Su Brahman, and that is very, very important to understand. So don't take this conflict of Vasuki and Garuda to be a conflict between the Shaivites and Vaishnavites. Very unfortunate how such great, amazing truths which can elevate us and take to the highest spiritual truths have been brought down to such pathetic imagination by people, and talking of Vasuki as some Shaivic symbolism and Garuda as a Vaishnavite symbolism, and then making it a fight between the Shaivites and Vaishnavites. Shiva and Vishnu, the nothingness and everythingness, are just two sides of our own true nature, and to make them fight is utter foolishness. So let's give up this utter foolishness on this great day of Falguna Shukla Tritiya, the Ratha Yatras of both our Annapurneshwari at our Agnya Chakra, as well as Subramanya at our Swadhisthana Chakra, for which the great Adi Shankaracharya sang the Subramanya Bhujangam. And this is really amazing. He is the one person, the Advaitic Messiah, who resurrected the non-duality principles, who brought in all of these and combined them. He even sang the Bhaja Govindam and combined the Vaishnavite principles as well, and brought in the combos, invocations of all these deities, which are nothing but symbolisms of our own different chakras. How can we say one chakra is superior to the other? There is no hierarchy amongst the chakras. They are all equally important to us, as equally important as our body, mind and intellect are. They have different purposes for which each one of them is made, and they all are equally significant. There's no hierarchy over there. We just need to understand their place and their functionality, and live out this multifunctional life, this beautiful game of life that we are all playing. Let's enjoy it in the same kind of bliss and ecstasy with which we take out these rathas around these temples. That ratha is happening in us every moment of every day of our entire life. Let's enjoy this Kundalini Shakti in the form of the snake that is moving up and down, not only through the Ida and the Pingala nadis of our feminine and masculine natures, but more importantly through the Sushumna or the middle nadi, wherein we can raise our spiritual evolution to the highest levels. So let me finish this particular massage and message episode with a few shlokas in praise of our Annapurneshwari as well as our Subramanya. कात्यायनाय विद्महे कन्याकुमारी धीमहि तन्नो दुर्गिः प्रचोदयात्। जातवेदसे सुनवाम सोम मराति यतो निदहाति वेदः स नः पर्षदति दुर्गाणि विश्वा नावेव सिन्धुं धुरितात्यग्निः तामग्निवर्णां तपसा ज्वलन्तीं वैरोचनीं कर्मफलेषु जुष्टां दुर्गां देवीगं शरणमहं प्रपद्ये सुतरसि तरसे नमः। तत्पुरुषाय विद्महे महासेनाय धीमहि तन्नः षण्मुखः प्रचोदयात्। सरवणभवाय नमः। सरवणभव 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 पाहि मां सुब्रह्मण्य 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 रक्ष माम्। ஏறும் மயிலேறி விளையாடும் முகமொன்று ஈஷருடன் ஞான மொழி பேசும் முகமொன்று கூறும் அடியார்கள் வினை தீர்க்க முகமொன்று கொண்டுருவ வேல் வாங்கி நின்ற முகமொன்று மாறுப்படை சூரனை வதைத்த முகமொன்று வள்ளியை மனம் புணர வந்த முகமொன்று ஆறுமுகமான பொருள் நீயருளல் வேண்டும் ஆதி அருணாச்சலம் அமர்ந்த பெருமாளே பக்தியால் யானுனை பல காலும் பற்றியே மா திருப்புகழ் பாடி முத்தனாம் மாறனை பெருவாழ்வில் முக்தியே சேர்வதற்கருள்வாயே உத்தமான் ஞான குணனையா ஒப்பிலா மாமணி கிரிவாசா வித்தகா ஞான சத்தினி பாதா வெற்றிவேல் ஆயுத பெருமாளே நீ தத்துவமாகி நேமத்துணையாகி போதை தயவானே போதை தருவாயே நாதத்துணையோனே ஞானக்கடலோனே கோதற்றமுதோனே கூடற் பெருமாளே வசனமிக வேற்றி மறவாதே மனது துயராற்றல் உழாதே இசபயில் சடாட்சர மதனாலே பசுபதி சிவாக்யமுணவோனே பழனிமலை மீட்ட மிக வாழா வருக வருக முருகா வருக துதிப்போர்க்கு வல்வினை போம் துன்பம் போம் நெஞ்சில் பதிப்போர்க்கு செல்வம் பளித்து கதி தோங்கும் நிஷ்டையும் கைகூடும் நிமலர் அருள் கந்த ஷஷ்டி கவசம் தனை அமரரிடம் தீர அமரம் புரிந்த குமரனடி நெஞ்சே குறி ஷஷ்டியை நோக்க சரவண பவனார் சிஷ்டரு குதவும் செங்கதிர் வேலோன் பாதமிரண்டில் பொன்மணி சதங்கை கீதம் பாட கிண்கிணியாட மைய நடனம் செய்யும் மயில் வாகனனார் வருக வருக முருகா வருக. ஓம் ஸ்ரீ வாசுக்கியை நமः. ஓம் ஸ்ரீ கருடாழ்வார் நமோ நமः. ஓம் ஸ்ரீ ஆதி அனந்த சேஷாய நமோ நமः. ஓம் சக்தி ஓம் சக்தி ஓம் சக்தி ஓம் ஆதிசக்தி பராசக்தி மகாசக்தி ஓம் ஓம் சக்தி ஓம் சக்தி ஓம் சக்தி ஓம் இச்சாசக்தி கிரியாசக்தி ஞானசக்தி ஓம். சக்திவேல் முருகனுக்கு Haro Hara.